hear me? There, now? Okay. Okay, you can all hear me. I believe all of the commissioners are here, and I'd like to call to order the December meeting of the St. Louis County Police Board. Can we have a roll call for the commissioners that are in attendance?
Commissioner Gardner,
Here.
Commissioner Hassler,
Here.
Commissioner Price,
Here.
Commissioner Schwerin.
Here.
Thank you. And we also are fortunate to have with us today Richard Banks, who's the newly appointed member of the Board of Police Commissioners. We welcome you, Richard.
Thank you.
Because he is not effective and official for another 19 days, Mr. Banks will not be voting with us, but we're pleased that he came to get acquainted and to get a crash course in police board work. I'd also like at the very beginning of the meeting for us all to share a moment of silence in memory of Sergeant Herschel Turner of the Moline Acres Police Department. He lost his life on duty, and if you'll join me in a moment of silence in respect and honor of him. Thank you very much. First item on our agenda is a citizen citation presented by the Chief, Mary Barton.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chief Mary Barton of the St. Louis County Police Department. It's my distinct privilege to present a Citizen Service Citation Award to the family of John Coulter. This, to my knowledge, is the first time this award has been presented posthumously. This event happened last January, but we've been kind of quarantined, as you know, and the world kind of shut down. But I wanted to make sure that this went out, especially at this time of the year, that we recognize the importance of family, commitment, and warrior spirit. I have in front of me Miss Kathy Coulter. I have behind me the family of John Coulter. And I would like to read this as written. This happened when I was the captain of the 7th Precinct, and this event touched me, and I felt the need to recognize this. I do define a warrior as someone who runs to the sound of gunfire. So it's my privilege to present this to you, ma'am. I'm going to read it as I wrote it. The St. Louis County, Missouri Board of Police Commissioners Citizen Service Citation for Mr. John Coulter. This award is being presented for an act of heroism in the face of probable serious physical injury or death. On January 23, 2020, a call for a shooting was received wherein the caller, Christine Kemp, advised that she had been shot by her estranged husband, James Kemp, and was across the street in the neighbor's home. The victim also advised that her children were in a vehicle parked in the driveway. She advised that the suspect had confronted her in the hallway of her residence, fired rounds at her, only later discovering she had been wounded. Upon hearing shots fired, her father, John Coulter, entered the residence, tackled her estranged husband to the ground, began wrestling over the gun, and told her to get up and get out of the house. The victim stated she believed the suspect and her father were still in the residence. Due to the efforts of officers on the scene, the victim received life-saving medical treatment and survived her injuries. If not for the actions of Mr. Coulter, his daughter might not have survived the encounter, and his grandchildren were safely removed from the scene. After the scene was secured and entry was gained into the house, it was determined that Mr. Coulter had been fatally wounded. Your willingness to sacrifice your life to save the life of another upholds the highest traditions of courage, honor, and conspicuous bravery in the face of imminent death. Let this final act be recognized as your last full measure of devotion to your family. The St. Louis County Police Department is both honored and privileged to present this award to the family of John Coulter for his warrior spirit and selfless act of heroism at the cost of his own life. Signed this date, December 16th, 2020. Ma'am. Please recognize the family of Mr. John Coulter. Is there anything you care to say, ma'am? I'm sorry.
No, I know. It's just been really rough, especially right now.
Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm turning it back over to you, Judge.
Thank you, Chief. It's time for our crime statistics update. Lieutenant Dolly.
How's everyone doing? Hopefully you can hear me. Let me share my screen here. Just a second. All right, can everybody see the PowerPoint? Yep. Getting some
Yes.
nods. Okay. All right, we're going to go over the crime stats for November of 2020, and these are by approved date and also the UCR summary. Sort of that's the accounting of how we do this, just for the St. Louis County Patrol areas. My normal disclaimers on this. So if we look at our UCR Part 1 crimes, 2018 to 2020 comparisons, a couple things I'll highlight here is I usually do the homicides, murder, non-negligent manslaughters. We're up to 40 this year, probably a little bit more if you go to today's date with that in real time, but that's a 17% increase from last year. Our ag assaults and firearms, as I note every month, are up quite a bit this year, up 46%. They've really taken off. You have 853 through the end of November. Finally, we have motor vehicle theft. Those are again high as they were last year at a 24% increase. We're at 1478 this year. Overall, our totals, though, are up 1.3%. A lot of that, although I've been highlighting the high numbers, that's offset by some of these decreases in burglaries, larcenies, and some of the other property crimes. I move on to the 5-month comparison to see kind of how we're doing as it relates to the trend here. Again, our homicides, we had 9 for the month of November. We had a high month there. Some of these were October. They were approved in November. That's where you get those from. We go down to the larcenies. If we note here at the bottom, we have 526 for November. So the larcenies, that's the highest we've had in the last 5 months. That's probably because society's opening up back up a little bit with COVID. There's, at the time at least, less restrictions. And so there's more people out about, more people doing things. Our motor vehicle thefts have increased just a little bit here in November too. That's to be expected, really. Always when it starts to get cold, people warm up their cars, and that results in a few more thefts than we would normally have in normal or warmer weather, I should say. Okay, switching to directed calls for service. So this is when a citizen calls the police for some issue. These, as we would expect, have sort of decreased as we go into the colder months. So all the precincts are down. If you look at the column for November, they've all decreased since October. But again, this is what we'd expect as weather gets colder. We have fewer calls for service. Looking at the self-initiated calls for service by precinct, a little bit of a mixed bag here as far as some precincts are up, some precincts are down. A lot of this depends on the individual captains and different programs within the precincts and what they have going on. If I get to the traffic stop reports by work unit, this is very consistent with what we see every month as far as the volume of stops and also the percent minority compared to the percent of the population in the precinct. So these are very consistent as they, if we compare them to previous months. And then the final thing I'll cover here, the performance indicators. So these are administrative type things, citizen complaints, internal investigations, uses of force, department vehicle accidents, and Narcan saves. For the most part, these are all down for the year in most of these categories. Department vehicle accidents are especially down quite a bit, 18%, and as well as use of force incidents. So these are all very good signs as far as we're not causing much harm to the community as we're going about and doing our business. So that's all I have for that. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant. It's time for our budget update, Chief.
Mr. Chairman, I believe I'm going to take that. And
Very well.
thank you. Good morning, everyone. So just to reiterate, with respect to the budget that was submitted at $151.8 million, I'm rounding off, and that consisted of 12% for basic support services, 1% for vehicles, and 87% for salary and fringes, which is obviously the most significant part of the budget. It did take into account 7.7 million increase with respect to the police officers, professional staff, and crime lab collective bargaining agreements. That represents 85% of our workforce. And right now we're at 945 commission and 323 professional staff. The vehicle budget remained consistent at 1.2 million for 55 new vehicles this year. And that's not the most optimal, but we'll make do with keeping the fleet going as best as we can. The budget has not been finalized yet. There is a committee meeting this Tuesday with respect to it, and hopefully the budget will be approved shortly thereafter. And that's the fiscal report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Becker. Any questions? Hearing no questions, we'll proceed. Chief, you wanted to make a presentation on your Courageous Conversations program.
Can you hear me, Judge?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to have Captain Juan Cox speak on the Courageous Conversations program. Captain Cox?
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm Captain Cox, as the chief said, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the Courageous Conversations program that we started back in August of this year. I'll tell you a little bit about Courageous Conversations. It's not a new concept. It was established back in the 1990s out on the West Coast by a gentleman by the name of Glenn Singleton. And they created Courageous Conversations. They brought it to corporations and school districts to have a productive dialogue regarding race relations within those professions. After talking to a lot of my friends about some of the situations that we had regarding race, racial issues, diversity and inclusion, and a lack thereof, I was trying to think of something that we could do. And I know it all starts with communication. We have to talk about these issues. They're tough conversations, but we have to provide a forum, a platform where our employees, all of our employees, would be comfortable speaking, where it would be confidential, and yet we can take something from those meetings, whether it be to improve policy, or create training. So after speaking with a lot of my friends, they thought it would be a good idea. I enlisted the assistance of Lieutenant Kobe Dolly, who's been a partner with me with this Courageous Conversation since the beginning, along with School Superintendent Dr. Art McCoy. After speaking with those two about the concept of Courageous Conversation and doing research on it, we came up with a plan and to establish a program. We had two such sessions with two different groups where the chief, the deputy chief, they both participated in this process where I just took a list of all of our employees, professional staff, as well as commissioned officers. And I created a very diverse group, diverse by race, years of service, professional staff, commissioned officers. We really wanted to have a diverse group, but we really wanted to dive into some of these tough conversations regarding race, diversity, inclusion, equity. And I enlisted the help of Dr. Art McCoy, who's a friend, but he had experience in doing these Courageous Conversations at a school district that he had previously worked at. So we would create a group of 12 to 13 people with a facilitator, and Dr. Art McCoy served in that position, where he would actually bring up topics that we had discussed, dealing with some of the issues that we had talked about within the police department. Me with some of my friends and colleagues here. We would meet for 2 hours. Like I said, we had a session in August and one in September where we had really good conversation in regards to all of those topics, where everyone agreed to keep the conversations confidential, where they would speak freely. We had ground rules for the program, and it was a very well-received program. I thought it was very productive due to the pandemic, along with Dr. McCoy's schedule getting busy. He did those first 2 sessions free of charge. So we could afford that. But I think it's very important that we continue those conversations because our employees need a safe place where we can talk about these serious issues. Lieutenant Kobe Dolly was with me at both sessions, and we call them takeaways. He would take notes about some of the most important topics to see, hey, you know what, that's something that we can deal with via training. That's something that we can deal with maybe on the policy end. And some of the things we're not going to be able to solve 400 years worth of problems, but we at least can be empathetic to how people feel. The way people feel is not wrong. And they should be allowed to speak their truth. Lieutenant Dolly here will speak a little bit about the takeaways and the survey that he conducted and a little bit about the upcoming training.
Yeah, thank you. As far as the survey goes, so after the 2 sessions, we sent out a survey to everyone who attended, and we got really good results from that. Everybody, it was overwhelming that people really enjoyed the session. They got a lot out of it, felt like they learned a lot. And in fact, some people wanted it to be longer and sort of wanted more with the courageous conversations. As far as the takeaways go, you know, the whole session is a lot of people sharing their individual stories and their experiences in the department. It could be even before they came to the department. And I think one of the big takeaways, if we had to summarize it, is that everybody, if nothing else, they were able to value the ability to listen to others and listen to what other people say, because once you're able to do that, then sort of the byproduct of this is you understand that listening to others and understanding their perspective and where they're coming from helps you then make better decisions and understand people better, which not only helps internally with our own relations amongst employees, but also then that can help with the community as well, because you can take those same principles and apply them to whenever the officers go on calls or they deal with the public. So there's a lot of good things coming out of this besides sort of the almost like therapeutic side of it of just talking about your experiences.
In closing, I'd just like to say too, I brought this, and I knew it would be tough because I brought this to the chief's attention when we were really going through some tough times. And before I could even finish the concept, the chief agreed to green light the program to get the program started. So I was very appreciative of that. I just think that having a control place where our employees, commission and professional staff have a platform where they can speak their truth without utilizing social media platforms, whispers in a hallway, whispers in offices, that we can all speak freely about these things and make something positive come from them, whether it be through training or policy. I think that would do very well for our employees. And if nothing else, I just think that we all need a place where we can speak our truth if something's bothering us, or if you want to be complimentary towards a particular person or program that we do. I would highly recommend that the chief and the board consider maybe entering into a contract with Dr. McCoy or someone like that who can serve as a facilitator so we can keep these very important conversations going.
Are there any questions? I have, Captain Cox.
Yes.
How many of these conversations do you envision having? What schedule? What would it take to roll this out on a complete basis in the department?
Yes, sir. Judge, I think 2 per month, 2 hours in session. I know some of the officers, you know, one of the big, I guess, takeaways was, hey, we needed more time. But I think 2 hours is a good amount of time for a small group of maybe 12 employees with the facilitator to really have some courageous conversations, some meaningful conversations. And I think we should do it for a minimum of 6 months. And then I'll task myself, Lieutenant Dolly and Dr. McCoy with coming up with some productive training that we can take this out to more of our employees over a particular period of time so we can all get this. I don't even know if I want to call it training. I just think it's
Cathartic.
self-help.
Yeah.
It really is. It's therapy.
Sure.
So I have a question. So what outcomes do you expect? It's good to have a conversation, to get some things off your chest and to understand other folks. But if it is just that and only that, I'm wondering what outcomes you anticipate. Now, you said something about policies in the future, that sort of thing. Can you expand on that a little bit, please?
Yes, ma'am. I just think, and I know Lieutenant Dolly and his staff were recently working on the workplace harassment policy. There are certain things that if we don't communicate, and to me, it's all about communication. I'm fortunate. I've been here almost 26 years. I have a diverse group of friends. We talk about race all the time. There are some people that don't feel like they're being included because their voice is not being heard. So from just a therapeutic perspective, I like for these officers in a productive environment where they can speak their truth to get it off their chest, to say what they need to say. But we also are documenting the important things to see, you know what, this is something that we need some training in, because this keeps coming up. Are we missing something here? And that's why we really want those 1 to 2 to 3 year officers in there with people with 40 years of experience like the chief and the deputy chief, so we can all learn from one another. So I know we're not gonna solve all of the department's problems, but I think that we should communicate what those problems are to see if there is something that we can do about it.
So I'm thinking, you mentioned doing about 6 months worth of work, which would encompass how many people are we talking about? We're talking about maybe 50 or 60 folks?
Yes, ma'am. And that's before the training. And since you can't get everybody through, and with those first 2 groups, there were some people that I knew and there were some people I didn't. I would just be looking for, okay, I want a 3-year officer in West County, and I would go and I would find that person and call. I had 100%. Everybody I asked volunteered to do this. We wouldn't be able to get a large number in those 2-hour blocks with the programs. That's why we envision having some training, whether it be 6 hours, 8 hours. We're going to shoot for 8 hours, where we can get more of our employees through. And this is a very selfish initiative because it's for our employees. We need to clean up some of our own stuff. So that's why I wanted, professional staff, 3 professional staff, personnel for 9 commissioned officers, because that is about the breakdown of the department. And we want to get as many people through as possible.
Okay, yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree. I guess I'd like to see some sort of plan, written documentation of how that would work out. One of the challenges that I know that you face is time, the availability of the officers and such. But one of the concerns I have is that, particularly when we're talking about these issues of equity and diversity and inclusion, that they're certainly going to be ongoing. But if we could figure out a way to move a bit more quickly in terms of getting more folks at least exposed to the concepts you're talking about. So that's just a thought that I have, but I think it would really be helpful if maybe you and Lieutenant Dolly and Dr. McCoy, possibly, or whoever, can sit down and just kind of give us an informal sort of proposal. That would really, really be helpful.
Yes, ma'am, we can do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Michelle.
Well, I do have a question, but I want to preface it by saying this might be more appropriate for the informal proposal that Commissioner Hassler was talking about, but I'll ask it anyway. My question is, when you talk about training, are you talking about training people within the department to be able to facilitate these conversations effectively so that it trickles down to more cohorts being involved in the periodic conversations?
Well, what we really had envisioned is the people that are involved with it, and Lieutenant Dolly is certified to do some instructing with Dr. Art McCoy, who's obviously an educator, to base the training off of our takeaways. This is really going to be specific to our police department, but as Lieutenant Dolly said, there is a plan, a community engagement plan to take this platform out into the business world also. But for right now and getting the program started, it's very, I guess, exclusive to our police department to utilize our issues, our problems, and format that into training where we are really where we're trying to better ourselves. And what it really is, and what I've learned from the 2 sessions is, it's just more about being empathetic. I mean, you may not even agree with what a person said, but just to show that empathy, hey, I understand, I see where you're coming from. I get it now. And I think we received a lot of that. But I do like the train the trainer, so that way we're touching more people. But the initial plan was to utilize those takeaways to create specific training for our police department. Kobe, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, I think like an example would be, I was trying to think of some. So, there was not to get too far into the details of it, but there were some of these first sessions, there was talk of the dual roles that people play in their life, which we all can relate to. You're a mother, a father, sister, brother, and also a cop, and the impact that has on people as they try to perform their job. So I guess the takeaway would be is that as a department, we need to be more considerate of that, maybe, and somehow formalize that into policies. And I don't, right now, sitting here, I don't have exactly what that would look like, but I think that's the type of thing we're getting at. Is like you hear these stories and you hear the things that people go through, and maybe trying to take those and translate those into policies so that this is a better workplace for everyone.
Thank you.
Other questions? Captain Cox and Lieutenant Dolly, I want to congratulate you and thank you for your initiative on this in such an important area for our department. I sense that the board is going to be very supportive of this. And if you want to put together a outline project, what you need, what you're going to do, how rapidly you can take it to the department as a whole, we would be very happy to consider that, hopefully at our next meeting. Is that doable?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. And again, I want to thank you both for your hard work on this and your thoughtfulness, and that you took the initiative to make something better.
Thank you all for your time.
Next item on the agenda is the RFP for the diversity and inclusion efforts of the department. We've been working on this for some time. The RFP now is focused on bringing a professional consultant in to work with us to improve our diversity and inclusion efforts. Do we have a motion to adopt the RFP?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? If not, we can proceed to a vote. All in favor of the RFP?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it, and we'll issue the RFP to get professional assistance for our diversity and inclusiveness efforts. next, Chief, you received a letter from the Ethical Society of Police December 7th. Would you visit with us about that for a minute?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate the Ethical Society's delivery of this letter. I have read it. I would like time to review all aspects of this letter. And when we meet in January, it is my goal that we begin to discuss the items that they brought up in the letter and move forward to discuss what's possible, what we can look at, how we can move forward with that letter. So that is my goal at the beginning of when we choose a date for a January meeting.
Okay, very good. Does anybody have any questions about that for the chief? All right. Next item on the agenda is board elections. The county charter charges the Board of Commissioners to elect 3 officers, a chairman, a vice chairman, and a secretary every year. It is timely now for us to do that. Do we have motions for a chairman of the board?
I will.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm missing some of the conversation there.
Okay.
There we
So would you like
there
to,
we go.
would you like
Yes.
to repeat it?
If you could, I'm sorry.
Absolutely. I know this is sort of awkward since you're sitting in this chair seat, but my motion was to renominate Judge William Price as chair of the Board of Police Commissioners of St. Louis County.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you very much. I appreciate your confidence and we'll do the best we can. The next office is vice chairman. Are there motions?
Judge Price, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I'd like to make a motion to renominate Commissioner Swearin to vice chairman of the police board.
I second that motion.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Are there further nominations? Hearing no further nominations, we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With none opposed, Commissioner Swearingen is reelected as vice chairman of the board. And the final office we need to fill is secretary. Do we have a motion for secretary? I would move to renominate Mark Gartner. He's done a great deal of work and has been of great service to the board.
I would second that motion.
The motion's been made and seconded. Are there other nominations? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With none opposed, Mark Gartner is reelected to be secretary of the board. The next item on our agenda is approval of the meeting, the minutes from the meeting on November 18th. Do I have a motion to approve those meetings or those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, all who would vote to approve the minutes indicate aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. No letters and communications other than what we've spoken about. No old business. Now we come to contracts. The first 2 contracts on our list are matters that I need to recuse on. And last month, we had a motion to approve those with me not participating, which passed. However, the county councilor has indicated we also need a motion to authorize the vice chairman to sign those contracts. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Commissioner Swerin, both for the motion to authorize you to sign the contract and to approve the contracts by the board.
Thank you. I don't think it would be appropriate for me to submit this motion for consideration, so I will ask if anybody would like to submit such motion for consideration.
I move that Commissioner Schwerin be authorized to sign the contracts in lieu of Commissioner Price recusing himself.
I second that motion.
Any conversation? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. The motion passes. We have two contracts for consideration. The first is a police service agreement with the City of Chesterfield, and the second is a professional service agreement with BJC Corporate Health Services. I am first going to ask if there's any conversation about either of these contracts. Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve these contracts.
I move that both contracts for the City of Chesterfield and BJC Corporate Health Services be approved.
Thank you. Second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The contracts pass, and I will sign those with my newly delegated authority. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, congratulations on that. We have, I'm going to take the next 5 contracts to submit to the board for approval. The first is a contract with Michael Fagan to teach a program entitled Constitutional Law at the Police Academy. The second is a contract to have the APTAC Training LLC teach a program on field training officer. The next contract is with IXII Group to teach a academy course titled Telecommunicator Dispatcher Training 2021. The next contract is one with Legal and Liability Risk Management Institute to teach a program at the Academy titled Emerging Local Trends and Liability Management for Tactical, SWAT, and Emergency Response Operations. And the last in this group is a contract with Legal and Liability Risk Management Institute to teach a course titled Legal Trends for Supervisors and Law Enforcement Officers. Do we have a motion that those 5 contracts be approved?
I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Is there any discussion of these contracts? Hearing none, all in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, those contracts are approved. Now we'll do the next 1, 2, 3, 4 contracts. They include a contract with Public Grants and Training Initiatives to teach a program of law enforcement, suicide prevention, stress management, and conflict resolution in the new millennium. A contract with the Dolan Consulting Group to teach a program, Supervisor Liability for Public Safety. The next is a professional service agreement with the Department of Justice, and this will fund the purchase of 26 mobile data terminals for the police vehicles. And the last is a contract with the Missouri Department of Public Safety, which will be used to partially fund the salaries of 8 task force detectives. Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion to approve those contracts?
I move to approve these contracts.
I second the motion.
Okay, is there any discussion? No discussion. All in favor indicate aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed indicate nay. With none opposed, those contracts are approved. We have a number of general orders. Chief, would you run through those for us? We've lost the chief.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we
Okay.
can. Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. I am going to have Lieutenant Colby Dolly speak about those orders, Judge.
Okay, very well.
Right. The 4 general orders up for approval today. The first one is General Order 22. That's Department Organization. So there were numerous changes made to this. It's going to move different entities around and then also create a few new entities, work elements, one being the Regional Information and Intelligence Center. That's maybe one of the highlights of this. That's a new work element that's going to be put into place. Also, this is going to create a community engagement bureau that will be under HR. That's going to house a lot of existing things, but also hopefully put those all together to provide maybe a little bit more synergy with those. The next one is General Order 27, intoxicated driving offenses. So we've been working on this one for quite a while now. There's been some court cases over the last couple of years that impact this, and then also the sort of the case, just the case law in general, and also the technology with DWIs is changing, so we needed to update that. We finally have General Order 44, which is promotional policy. So a lot of this was the chief's vision and what she wanted for a promotional policy going forward. There's been revisions to the sergeant's process, the lieutenant's process, and the captain's process. Commissioner Schwerin and I, she had a question about this, and so there was one issue with that. Commissioner Schwerin, do you want to raise that, and then we'll just briefly discuss it.
Sure. I raised a question with respect to the proposal in the policy concerning written examinations for the sergeant's promotional policy. And it's my understanding that the new policy will provide a written examination that serves as a threshold in the promotional policy in order for those officers who are seeking to be put on the list for promotion to sergeant. They will have to pass the written examination by a score of 70% or higher, and then move on to the oral boards. There's a section in the promotional policy that talks about ranking the scores to the written exam. However, if the exam is in fact a threshold exam and all candidates who score 70% or higher will be moved forward to the oral board portion of the promotional policy program, there's really no point in ranking the scores in descending order. So when we discuss this policy and vote on it, I move that we vote on it, and I can present this motion again, but with the minor edit to the policy that takes out the requirement to publish the scores in descending order.
Thank you. And we definitely can make that change. I provided a copy to the board with that. It's basically one sentence that just removes that. So a very minor change to it.
Very good. And then the uniform safety and equipment order.
Yes, so that general order came about from the collective bargaining agreement with the police officers, the one that was updated, I think, a year or so ago, maybe more than that. And basically, this is a committee that reviews any type of change to uniform safety or equipment, which of course can encompass a lot of things, but that committee is already put into place, and anytime that either management wants to change something, or if there's a suggestion, basically that can make its way up to that committee to look at and evaluate and make a recommendation to the chief.
All right. Considering, let's vote, let's take General Orders 2022, 2027, and 2052 first. Do we have a motion to approve those general orders as submitted?
I move to approve those general orders as submitted.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, those orders are approved. Now, why don't we have a motion, or I'll make a motion on 20044, the promotional policy. First of all, I'd like to, there's another area where the department has worked hard to improve its policy to make it more fair and equitable. And I congratulate you all on doing that. And with the change suggested by Commissioner Swerin, I move that we adopt General Order 20044 of promotional policy.
I second the motion.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? With no discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, the General Order 20044 is approved. Now, in the public forum, do we have any members or any members of the public who wish to participate in the public forum?
We did not have any submissions today.
Okay, no submissions. That will conclude our open portion of the meeting. The Board of Police Commissioners may vote to go into closed meeting for review of claims and lawsuits involving the Police Department, Section 610.0211 RSMO, and Section 114.0201 SLCRO, discussions of employee and personnel matters, Section 610.0213 and 13 RSMO, and Sections 114.0203 and 13 SLCRO, and an update on union negotiations, Section 610.0219 RSMO, and Section 114.0209 SLCRO, and specifications for competitive bidding, Section 610.02111 RSMO, and Section 114.02011 SLCRO. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
I move that we move into closed session.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Will you do a roll call vote for us, Diana?
Commissioner Gardner,
Yes.
Commissioner Hassler,
Yes.
Commissioner Price,
Yes.
and Commissioner Schwerin.
Yes.
Okay, the board will go into closed session. For those of you who won't wait until we come out and adjourn, we wish you all safe, healthy, and happy holiday season. Thank you.
unmute and turn on the camera for her.
Let's take the cameras on, I think. Yes, because and she wants to go outside the headphones, so just unplug this.
Yep. Might want to leave it muted until she needs to speak. The motion.
There you go.
Will literally take.
Are we all here?
I'm here.
And are we recording? All right.
Yes, you are.
Very good. The board's returned from its closed session, and it's appropriate now. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second that the board adjourn. Diana, will you do the roll call vote for us?
Commissioner Gardner,
Yes.
Commissioner Hassler,
Yes.
Commissioner Price,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwerin.
Yes.
Thank you. The board's adjourned.